What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Tesla stock, ticker symbol TSLA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Friday, May 10th. Okay, guys, Tesla here today, down $2.75 a share. It's minus 1.57% in regular trading hours. Listen, it is up a little bit here in the after hours, a little less than a buck, about 63 cents. Really not all that much, but take that with a grain of salt. I mean, we have to. I know a lot of you bulls, it's really good to be careful with after hours movement and not allow it to really discourage you or get your hopes up in a meaningful way. I understand today's a very small move, but I mean, volume is incredibly low. So just, be careful with that after hours. So let's do this. Let's take a look at the volume profile. We'll kind of take a look under the hood and see if there's any obvious bias that we can pull out that we didn't get just from the price action. We'll take a look at the psychological levels that the traders and the institutions are going to be paying attention to, so we should be as well. We'll look at implied volatility, the expected move, and we'll finish out with the directional bias coming out of the chain for tomorrow. So let's get started with that volume profile analysis here on the 5-minute chart. By the way, if you are new here, Tesla is a daily upload. So my goal here in the near term is 10,000 subscribers. And I know we can hit that, but not without your help. So listen, I'll keep the Tesla videos coming every day. And I appreciate you subscribing. So let's take a peek under the hood here and see. We'll go from left to right as is typical. Contextual open, we get a fade in volume. It actually held on a little longer, but we saw that in the broader market as well today. So that's fine. The truth is, there really is not much obvious bias. And then we have these two, okay? These two outliers. A lot of people are going to be tempted to look at those and say, wow, that looks like bearish bias to me. But the truth is, even if those were green, I can't assign any bias to those because they're outliers, right? It's one bar, and there's too much of a risk by reading into one bar. That's why I'm always looking for consecutive bars. So if we move through the day here, we really didn't get any of that, even into the close. This high volume doji, that's why it's white, because it opened at the same price that it closed at. Even that bar is just going to be a rebalancing bar, the first bar after the close, right? So honestly, there's almost no bias at all here in the volume profile. Everything kind of just cancels each other out, right? Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't tell us anything. If it were a completely flat day in Tesla right now, that would basically mean that doesn't tell us anything. But if today were green or red, like it is, having no bias is quite telling. Because on a relatively decent green day, like 1.5%, 1.6% upside, you would hope to see some bullish bias. And if you didn't see any, that would be disappointing. So the fact that we're down 1.5 or 1.6% and there's essentially no bearish bias, I suppose, the bulls would probably take that. And that's a little bit annoying, for lack of a better word, for the bears. So let's move on here. Let's take a look at the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels here on the 30-minute. All right, now you can see here, we've been struggling for a few days here, right, to reclaim that 50 period. And you can see we're still struggling today. We attempted this morning, faded off the open. So bears, a repeat of what's been going on these last few days is exactly what you guys want. Anytime we try to retake that, reject, and do so on as much volume as possible. We faded and rejected on pretty decent volume this morning. Bears, for you guys, that's what you guys would want to see occur again tomorrow. Bulls, high volume rip upside through the 50 period, low volume retest for confirmation with that high volume bounce to really confirm that level as a short-term support, flipping back in the bulls' favor, at least on this one specific psychological level. That would set you guys up for a near-term potential test moving up toward that 200 period, which would be the next level to watch on the 30-minute specifically. Now, moving on to the 4-hour chart, you guys can see here that this one is quite in play right now. See that gray line right here? That's the 200 period. We're only a couple of points away. All right, bulls. For the last couple of days, we've held it as support. We didn't test it today, but yesterday we tested it and held it as support. If we see another test, I don't want to give up the 200 period from a bullish perspective. If we test the 200 period, I just want to hold it as support. Okay? And ideally doing so on at least average, ideally above average volume. Get a big sample size that agrees with that level of support. Bears, if you guys could crack that downside, that would be what you guys would really want to see. Okay, because then you own both of these levels on the 4-hour chart. And not just doing so for like half an hour or an hour intraday, ideally doing so early in the day and holding that until the close. Now, the most important chart of all, guys, is going to be the daily. And this one, again, similar to the 4-hour, this is extremely in play. You guys notice anything? That white line, that's the 50-day moving average. That is an incredibly heavily watched indicator on a very heavily watched time frame, the daily. So this right here has a lot of eyeballs, and we're basically sitting right on top of the 50-day. We just barely gave it up, but this is nowhere near definitive enough for me to make any rash statements right now. I mean, we're still just sitting right on top of the thing. Okay, so listen, tomorrow is yet again a battle of the 50-day moving average. It's time for this thing to make a decision here, okay? Bears, you want this to continue through downside, making it undoubtedly broken. Bulls, it's time to hold that thing as support and drive high enough to start putting a little bit of doubt in people's minds that that thing's not going to hold as support. Okay, and prove that it is. All right, now, again, it's time to make a decision here. Because interestingly, we've kind of just been straddling this thing for the last couple of days. So the reality is, if we can hold this to the downside, hold the 50 as resistance, Bears that immediately sets you guys up for a downside break down through 170 potentially, and a test of that 166.50 to 167 channel. Bulls, if we can hold the 50-day as support, immediately sets you guys up for a test of 175 potentially, and then an upside test of that 177.50 to 180 channel, 177.50 being the bottom end of that channel, which this channel ultimately is what I want to get above from a bullish perspective, is get back above 180, because then we're kind of out of all this muck. Now, implied volatility here on Tesla compared to the last couple of months here, very low compared to the last few months. It's down again today, quite a bit actually. All right, so if you're being IV crushed, that's why. But listen, also understand that if you've been thinking about buying new calls or new puts, the Vega value that you're paying up front that's baked in already to those contracts is very low right now, comparatively speaking. So that's potentially a good thing, right? Now, expected move for tomorrow, because we have an expiration tomorrow. That makes our life easy here on Thursdays. So tomorrow's expiration, May 10th. The expected move by tomorrow's close compared to today's close is plus or minus $3.48 a share. That's the expected volatility being baked in by the market. And you might be thinking, okay, but what about the directional bias? That's the volatility bias. What about direction, right? Let's look at volume. 1.45 million total contracts traded. And look at this. The overall ratio is very evenly matched. About 737,000 calls, 713,000 puts. But if we break it down by the short-term speculators, we get a little bit more decisive volume here. About 311,000 calls, 243,000 puts. Listen, if you guys are getting value of the daily Tesla uploads, I ask you to do one thing. Please leave a like on the video and get out of here and enjoy your day. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.